All right, this is absolutely bizarre. Rudy Giuliani, or Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal attorney, maybe former, I guess. We don't really know at this point what's going on. Rudy appeared on TV on none other than Fox News. He was interviewed by Trump brown noser Maria Bartiromo. And those are, there are two different things here that are bonkers about this video. First is what Rudy Giuliani says, because Rudy Giuliani now is jumping on the train and he is going on TV and pushing chloroquine as a treatment for coronavirus. Rudy is not a doctor. Trump is not a doctor. Actual doctors are saying it's worth trying in controlled trials along with dozens of other things, but the early results seem very 50-50 about chloroquine. Of course, if Trump is saying it, then everybody around Trump is saying it. So Rudy Giuliani now recommending medications on TV. So we're going to play that. But the other crazy thing about this video is that Rudy Giuliani looks like he's had half of a haircut in this video. What I mean is one side of Rudy Giuliani's head looks like he has a short haircut, like he's almost shaved his head. The other side doesn't. It's very odd. So if you're watching, look at the left side of Rudy's head, meaning the right side of your screen, and you'll see a ton of hair that's all puffed up. And his hair on the right side of his head, your left, looking at the screen, is gone. It's a very weird thing and contributing to Rudy Giuliani's generally increasingly disheveled appearance. Anyway, let's go to the substance now.
I think we should let doctors decide whether we should use hydrochloroquine, not the national bureaucracy. You know, this disease can kill you. And if hydrochloroquine has side effects, none of which are death, by the way, then those side effects I may want to endure because of the risk of death. And it may be different if I'm 25 or if I'm 75. Those choices should be given to doctors, not to the bureaucrats in Washington who want to go through 3 blind tests. When we finish the 3 blind tests, you know, most of America could be gone. And they sit there in an ivory tower, whereas the guy sitting at Mount Sinai Hospital with the person walking in who's 65 years old with 104 temperature, and I sent one there just the other day, first thing they did before they even talked to him is give him hydroxychloroquine. And it's banned in New York by the governor. Why is the governor banning it? Everything shows that it works. Everything shows that its side effects don't bother you until you take it for a month or two for chronic illness like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. 5 administrations of it, so far no side effects.
Rudy says, let's let doctors decide. That's who is deciding. We don't need Rudy and Trump saying try it. And this is the new game that they're playing. They're acting like it's bureaucrats who are making decisions about medications. That's not true. The FDA has approved for emergency use, really quickly, emergency use of chloroquine if determined appropriate by a doctor. The side effects are never death, Rudy says. That's wrong. And in fact, there's something called chloroquine poisoning. People with heart problems can end up dying from taking doses of chloroquine. There are peer-reviewed studies about this. Rudy says chloroquine's banned in New York. That's not true. They are repeating this, but it is not true. New York and some other states have restricted access to chloroquine to avoid stockpiling of the drug. There are exemptions for clinical trials. There are exemptions for patients hospitalized with coronavirus if the doctor determines it's appropriate. These are all lies. And as you all know, I've been talking about chloroquine longer than Trump. I have been telling you this is one of dozens of possible treatments. We want to test it. But Trump now being so in favor of it, Rudy being so in favor of it, we found out Novartis, which manufactures it, paid Michael Cohen $1 million for access to Trump. When we look at this from a political perspective, it stinks to high heaven. From a medical perspective, chloroquine should be tried safely when determined by doctors as one of many RCTs, randomized clinical trials, and we should see what comes of it. And it just doesn't stop on Fox News with the chloroquine. I have another great example for you from Fox News. In trying to keep the propaganda narrative set by Donald Trump going, Fox News brought on a doctor to talk about chloroquine. Unfortunately, they brought on the wrong doctor. I think you're really going to like this. This is an interview with Dr. William Haseltine. William Haseltine was interviewed by Fox host Dana Perino. Dana Perino, you might remember, was George W. Bush's press secretary at one point. Haseltine is a well-known biologist, entrepreneur, philanthropist. He's a 75-year-old guy now, did very important work on HIV/AIDS, did important work on the human genome, taught at Harvard Medical School. This is a serious guy. He's serious in the medical world. He's serious in the business world. And he does not take Dana Perino's BS when she now tries to keep pushing chloroquine as a possible coronavirus treatment, which is exactly what Donald Trump has been doing. Let's get to Dr. Haseltine starting to shut down Dana Perino.
Sir, can you tell me your thoughts about this drug? Everybody wants to find a cure or a treatment or a therapy for coronavirus. What do you think about the drug that is used normally to treat malaria?
Well, thank you for the question, Dana. It's sad to me that people are promoting that drug. We know already from studies, at best, it will have a very mild effect, at very best. There are studies that conflict a little bit, one from the other. One concludes it has no effect. The other concludes it has a mild effect. The net result is, whatever effect it has, it will be very mild. That drug has been used for years against many other viruses to no effect. The thing that makes me sad about that story is some people may take it who are on other medications, who are other underlying conditions, and may have very serious, even life-threatening consequences. It is not something to take unless a doctor prescribes it.
So notice that in 45 seconds, he refutes just about everything that Donald Trump has been saying. Trump says, what do you have to lose? Dr. Haseltine explains, you can lose your life. It has life-threatening side effects for some people. Trump says it's working really well. Dr. Haseltine explains there are conflicting reports, but it is either mild or no impact. And here, Dana Perino continues pushing because this is not going well to push Trump's narrative. And now Dr. Haseltine straight up calls some of the claims nonsense and says it is reminiscent of quack cures when people continue to push this.
And what about I know you don't go by anecdotal evidence, but there are stories of people saying that they've had this Lazarus effect by using this drug.
That is nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. And in any situation, there are always going to be people who promote one kind of quack cure or another, and there are Lazarus effects. In every epidemic I've ever looked at, it's always the case. Let me just repeat. We know that at very best, this drug will have a very mild effect on changing the course of the disease, if it has any effect at all. That is what the data has shown so far, and I am convinced that that's what further studies will show. And it's not without adverse consequence. It is irresponsible to promote this drug at this time.
In absolutely the most direct terms so far, a doctor on Fox News saying promoting this like an exciting new product is irresponsible. And Dana Perino simply unable to say much else because she's not a doctor in the end, and she could only reference this vague anecdotal evidence. And that's another Fox News segment gone wrong once again. So you have to understand, Fox News is invested in the Trump narrative. When Trump was downplaying coronavirus, Fox was downplaying coronavirus. When Trump started using the word hoax in a coy way related to coronavirus, Fox News started using the word hoax. Fox has been one of the biggest promoters of chloroquine, allowing 109 claims during a 3-day period in March about how well the drug functions, with only 15 claims during that same 3-day period, which cast any doubt on the efficacy of chloroquine to treat coronavirus. They even bring on TV doctors, people very different than Dr. Haseltine, including Dr. Oz, to promote chloroquine. And so when we see a real doctor who is a serious person smack down a Fox News host, it is very entertaining. But the most important thing is we don't go any farther one way or the other than what the science says. Dr. Haseltine may be right. It may have a small effect. There are dozens of things being tested. We should go through the process with everything and not pick one drug to promote like a miracle cure, which is what Donald Trump has been doing. If it turns out chloroquine, with or without azithromycin, works well for certain patient profiles, for example, or at certain stages of the disease, that's great. Remember, I've been talking about chloroquine and azithromycin much longer than Donald Trump has. But we've got to follow the science. We can't turn this into a propaganda fest. We don't pick a medication like a sports team and promote it no matter what the facts are. Good for Dr. Haseltine for setting Dr. Perino straight. I can't imagine he will be invited back on the program. We continue to cover the trials of various medications on the David Pakman Show Instagram page, at David Pakman Show. Make sure you're following. We'll be back right after this. Okay, so we're continuing our tour through the delusions of Fox News today. I have two Fox News religious clips, and one is an example of a religious leader being responsible about coronavirus. That's the first one. The second Fox News coronavirus religious clip is a religious nut being completely irresponsible about coronavirus. Okay, so let's start. Remember that Donald Trump at one point wanted the country open by Easter. And it's a sort of God complex gone wrong. I've talked about this before. Trump seeing himself as a sort of Jesus-like figure, resurrecting the country on Easter, much like the biblical Easter story of Jesus's resurrection. Now, ultimately, it didn't work. Would be hugely dangerous to reopen the country this Sunday. That's when Easter is. Imagine, we're not even at the peak yet. Trump was thinking about reopening. But there's a lot of really big evangelical churches that don't care. They keep gathering huge crowds. And Fox News host Laura Ingraham really wants religious gatherings to continue because otherwise, as she says, nobody will gather to pray until Anthony Fauci says it's okay, which to me makes sense, right? I mean, like, don't we need doctors and not pastors deciding when it's safe to gather in huge groups? So check out Laura Ingraham on her show, Truly Vile, while interviewing a Catholic priest, Father Murray, and then some other guy. I don't know who the other guy is, but he doesn't speak during this segment. Check it out.
Yeah, I think Father Murray, a lot of people, especially the working class people of our country, the people who pay the bills, who don't get a lot of accolades, people that, you know, a lot of us came from, they're the one. This is like the time where they need a public affirmation of their faith. It's all well and good to say, stay at home. And I heard some priest on TV, it might have even been on our network, saying, oh, it's the domestic church. You know, yeah, I get that. But this is Holy Week. And just to say, because the bishops say you can't, I don't know. I've got to say, blessing the palms, public, you know, blessings, people far apart. Otherwise, you know, maybe we won't have Mass until Anthony Fauci says it's okay after Christmas or something. I mean, I guess, will the bishops be okay with that? I don't know.
The people who work, they need to go to church. And Laura Ingraham seems incredulous that, wait, people are staying home during Holy Week? How is this possible? So there's Laura Ingraham being insane. But now we get to Father Murray's response. Father Murray's response is absolutely correct. Now, there's two funny little things that you'll notice in Father Murray's response. One is that he refers to coronavirus as coronavirus, which I just love. It's extraordinarily endearing. And as he does it, his headphone also falls out of his right ear. So a lot of things visually going wrong for Father Murray, but he is absolutely right and doing the responsible thing. And for that, he should be commended. Take a look.
Father Murray, Laura, you know, I don't want to get you in trouble.
I'll just say this. No, you're not going to get me in trouble, but I will say this. 60 priests died in Italy and one bishop. And that was because they had the coronavirus without knowing it. And they put out, that disease into their congregation. And so many people have died in Italy. And, you know, we don't want to repeat that here. You have to get ahead of the curve. You can't just keep things, as they were. And it's regretful, but you know, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. If you sacrifice going to Mass so that people don't get sick, I think that's a form of praising God.
So the Catholic priest pointing out, essentially, stay the hell home, actually saying the responsible thing. You should stay home. Priests have died in Italy. This is not good. Staying home to avoid being sick is good. God's not going to be bad. God's not going to punish you. So good for Father Murray here. He's doing absolutely the correct thing. And unfortunately, on Fox News, we continue to see every dangerous narrative that is being parroted by Trump and people around him repeated ad nauseum. Chloroquine, chloroquine, chloroquine. What do you have to lose? Take it, take it, take it. We got to go to church. Prayer is so important. Keep tithing, keep donating to your church. So good for Father Murray here for getting involved and saying, no, that's the wrong thing. A responsible example of a religious leader commenting on what has to be done about coronavirus. Unfortunately, now we get to the irresponsible one. Okay, last Fox News clip for the day. I'm going to play for you today the video that should be at the top of the list of videos to scrub from the internet if you are the Trump administration and if you are Fox News. It is a video of a woman named Kayleigh McEnany, who is a press secretary for Donald Trump's 2020 campaign. She's been around for a while commenting on politics. She's a big Christian right-winger, often saying painfully dumb things. She went on Fox News a few weeks ago and said, not that the virus wouldn't be a big deal here in the United States because of something about its rate of spread or its death rate or because of something about infectious disease or a medication. She went on and said on Fox News, Donald Trump is America first. He's not going to allow a virus like coronavirus to come here. And she added, that's refreshing compared to the Obama administration. This is what happens when you join a cult, and she is in a cult, and that's the right word here. So the Trump campaign has been working hard to scrub videos from the internet of Trump referring to the virus as a hoax. If I were them, I would do everything I can to get this video off the internet. We're going to try to make it a little bit harder by playing the video for you now. This is Kayleigh McEnany being interviewed by former Fox host Trish Regan. Trish Regan has since been fired after going on her own unhinged rant about the coronavirus hoax. This is the clip in question. Take a look.
Looking at the coronavirus and the president saying, look, we're not going to take people in from China right now. I mean, isn't it just a matter of protecting us, our national security really being at stake? And he's sort of the last line of defense there, or first
That's
line,
right.
I should say.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Trish Regan there gleefully welcoming this absolutely abortive and fetid claim by Kayleigh McEnany. This, to me, is more highly weaponized than the dumb medical arguments that float around, because this is the type of argument that's actually immune to reality and facts. It's an argument like we've seen. So let me give you an example of arguments that we've seen. This is less of a concern than the flu because it is less deadly. That's wrong, but it's not immune to the facts, right? Most of the people or many of the people saying it don't care about the facts, but you can deal with it. You can say, oh, well, the flu death rate is 0.15. The death rate for the virus appears to be between 0.7 and 1.5. It's somewhere between 5 and 10 times deadlier. Okay. You don't need to social distance, some of them have said. Okay, here's evidence that you do. State social distancing or seeing a lower rate of case growth or whatever. Again, many people don't care about the facts, but you can have a conversation about it. Kayleigh's off the deep end in cult world. Trump is America first, so he won't allow the coronavirus into the U.S., unlike awful Obama. That's immune from fact. You're not operating in the real world. And Kayleigh often doesn't operate in the real world. Just check out her videos about abortion. And Trish Regan also doesn't operate in the real world. So it's really a perfect fit, actually, for the Fox News audience. Now, after this clip started to get attention, some spokesperson for Trump said, no. What Kayleigh meant was Trump won't allow the virus to come here from China because he banned travel. Okay, well, Trump banned China travel when Europe was already actually the focus of the disease. He was always 10 steps behind. And maybe most importantly, even after Trump banned travel from China, flights from China kept coming in for a full week after that point. So this is really ugly, weaponized ignorance that we're up against. We are up against a virally spreading virus, and we're up against virally spreading disinformation, and we're up against people who seem to have been inoculated against fact and reason. And that's a really tough place to be. Okay, I have a challenge for you today. Play along. I want you to tell me whether what I'm about to play for you is evidence of Donald Trump lying, which he does often, or is it evidence of Donald Trump glitching badly and losing his memory of what he said just minutes earlier during yesterday's coronavirus White House press briefing? So let's take a look at the evidence. The new scapegoat for the Trump administration around coronavirus is the WHO, the World Health Organization. We've seen this develop and grow virally, for lack of a better term, over the last 48 to 72 hours. The Trump administration has realized, hey, let's just constantly say that everything bad that happened is the fault of the WHO. Now, there's plenty of blame to go around. I've been critical of the WHO, but the Trump administration is going beyond that, and they are focusing their blame singularly on the WHO, while Trump continues to insist he did everything perfectly, he did everything quickly, he had the best response of any country. Obviously not true. So let's get to the video. Listen to what Trump says here very, very clearly. He says, we are going to put a hold on the money that we send to the WHO. We are going to do that very strongly. It's going to be a very powerful hold of the money. Listen to Trump saying it coming out of his own mouth.
World Health Organization, because they really are, they called it wrong. They call it wrong. They missed the call. They could have called it months earlier. They would have known. And they should have known. And they probably did know. So we'll be looking into that very carefully. And we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it.
Okay, so just so we're really clear here, this is just the sentence where Trump says we are holding the money from the WHO. We are not sending the money.
And we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it.
So we're all on the same page. Trump says we're putting a very powerful hold on the money to the WHO. A few minutes go by. A reporter says, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Is this really a good time to stop sending money to the WHO? And Trump says, a hold? Who said anything about a hold? I never said that. This is minutes later, ladies and gentlemen. Take a listen.
So is the time to freeze funding to the WHO during a pandemic?
No, maybe not. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but we're going to look at it.
You did say that.
We give a tremendous, no, I didn't. I said we're going to look at it. We're going to investigate it. We're going to look at it. But we will look at ending funding. Yeah, because you know what? They called it wrong. And if you look back over the years even, they're very much, everything seems to be very biased toward China.
I never said that. And reporters, incredulous, start yelling, yes, you did. And he did. One more time. Here is what Donald Trump said just minutes earlier.
And we're going to put a hold on money spent to the WHO. We're going to put a very powerful hold on it.
And then minutes later, Donald Trump denying that he ever said it.
So is the time to freeze funding to the WHO during a pandemic?
No, maybe not. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but we're going to look at it.
You did say that.
We give a tremendous, no, I didn't. I said we're going to look at it. We're going to investigate it. We're going to look at it.
So you all know what my question is. Is this evidence that Donald Trump's brain function is so poor that he really has no recollection that minutes earlier he said we're putting a very powerful hold on the money? Or is Trump simply lying? Is he trying to rewrite history in real time? What explains this? I want you to let me know your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. Lying, memory glitch, something else. I don't know the answer. You let me know. I have today the perfect sort of mind meld for you of two completely lunatic factions who have designated themselves coronavirus experts in recent weeks. You've got Fox News hosts, and then you've got religious nuts. Now, when I say religious nuts, I don't mean everybody who's religious. In the last segment, we had Catholic priest Father Murray saying, stay the hell home. No churches on Easter. Priests are dying. You've got to do the responsible thing. So when I say religious nuts, I don't mean anybody who's religious. I'm talking specifically about religious nuts. So on the one hand, we've previously mentioned absolutely unhinged Fox News former judge Jeanine Pirro, including her seemingly drunk broadcast last week or the week before. That's on one side. On the other side, we've talked about these religious grifters talking about sin is what caused coronavirus. Prayer is the solution to coronavirus. This clip today is a combination of the two. Top religious grifter Franklin Graham, son of the late Billy Graham, a family of Christian evangelists, was invited onto Judge Jeanine's Fox News show. And it is as wacky and weaponized as you could imagine. So let's get right into it. You won't be surprised. Franklin Graham says it is sin that has caused the virus. Judge Jeanine loves it. Let's break it all down. And to Jeanine's credit, she asks a good question. Why would God allow coronavirus to happen? She's not asking the question in good faith. She's teeing up a specific answer for Graham, but at least she's asking the question. Take a listen.
Given the number of Americans, the thousands who've already died, you know, you must get questions like, why would God allow this kind of thing to happen?
Well, I don't think it's God planned for this to happen. It's because of the sin that's in the world, Judge. Man has turned his back on God. We have sinned against him. And we need to ask for God's forgiveness. And that's what Easter's all about. It's about God so loving the world that he gave his only begotten son.
God didn't plan it. The sin caused it to happen, Judge, says Franklin Graham. And notice him throwing Easter in there. Easter, of course, sort of canceled since the country will remain closed. No doubt many churches in certain parts of the country will be filled with people on Easter regardless. So then Franklin Graham continues with this line of reasoning. And if you're watching, pay attention to the look on Judge Jeanine's face, like this is some incredible new idea that Franklin Graham is putting out there.
That whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but should have everlasting life. Jesus Christ came to save sinners. He didn't come to condemn the world, but to save the world. And if we put our faith and trust in him, he'll forgive our sins, and he'll heal our hearts, and he'll change the course of our lives. And this pandemic, this is a result of a fallen world, a world that has turned its back on God. And so I would encourage people to pray and just let's ask God for help.
Well, Franklin Graham, I don't think there's any question, but this is giving people a tremendous opportunity to be somewhat introspective.
There it is. If we trust Jesus, he will forgive our sins and it'll change our lives. And the pandemic is because we've turned our back. Just pray. Praying is the solution. So there are going to be people who see this and they will say quite simply, there's nothing wrong with this. It's a man of faith. And he says we must maintain our faith through the crisis. That's not what Franklin Graham is doing here. Franklin Graham is appearing on a channel that's been minimizing and downplaying the pandemic from day one. And then they feed to their audience a guy who says the virus is caused by sin and solved by prayer, and we need Jesus in our lives at this particular time. The solution is social distancing, letting the medical experts tell us what to do, work on therapeutics, work on a vaccine, science, and staying the hell home. Those are the solutions. And when these Fox News viewers hear Franklin Graham insist the cause is sin and the solution is prayer, they are more likely to keep packing the churches and potentially becoming super spreaders of the disease. And that dumb look on Judge Jeanine's face, like what a breakthrough, incredible breakthrough from Franklin Graham here on the virus. It's disgusting, yes, but it's not altogether surprising for Judge Jeanine. The message is, this isn't about anything other than people didn't pray correctly or they didn't pray enough. And it's actually flat out vile to be perpetuating that idea. What about all of the good praying Christians, by the way, who did die of the virus? I guess, according to Graham, they weren't praying hard enough, or their sins outweighed the prayer, or they prayed to the wrong God, or God works in mysterious ways, or what? You're not allowed to ask that. That's an offensive question to people like Franklin Graham. The problem is, in reality, almost the opposite of what Franklin Graham says. Too many people are ignoring science and doctors. The problem is not people are ignoring Jesus. Too many people are ignoring science and doctors, and instead they're listening to pastors and clueless presidents like the one that we have. And of course, this is a one-size-fits-all explanation for these religious nuts. Jerry Falwell, after 9/11, said it was the abortionists and the gays that caused 9/11 to happen. Others said the same thing about HIV. Oh, definitely sin was the reason for HIV. These are horrible people. They are only making the problem worse, and Fox News continues to incubate, for lack of a better term, these ideas. And unfortunately, again, sticking with the viral vocabulary, a lot of Fox News viewers have been inoculated against reason and rationality, and they take this stuff as if it were gospel, which Franklin Graham, of course, probably believes it to be. Unless he's just a straight up grifter, which he may be, in which case he's a bad person rather than delusional. You often can't really tell with these guys. So we have no shortage of gaslighting in 2020, and specifically around the pandemic. But what really takes the cake, in my view, is that Fox News has now started to pretend that they never downplayed the virus, that they never said it was a hoax, that they never said it was a great time to get on an airplane or to go to a restaurant because there wouldn't be anybody else there. They are pretending they never gave platforms to any right-wing clowns that wanted to minimize the virus and defend President Trump. And they are now trying to revise history, much like Donald Trump has tried to do. And they are doing it because they're starting to get sued for having spread coronavirus disinformation. Here's Sean Hannity. Remember, Hannity famously put up an image a few weeks ago bragging about coronavirus deaths 0. Here's Hannity the same night ridiculing everyone who took this seriously from day one.
Tonight, I can report the sky is absolutely falling. We are all doomed. The end is near. The apocalypse is imminent, and you're going to all die, all of you, in the next 48 hours. And it's all President Trump's fault.
Here's Hannity again downplaying it on March 9th.
In all seriousness, I think we've got to be very real with the American people. I don't like how we are scaring people unnecessarily. And that is that unless you have an immune system that's compromised, and you are older, and you have other underlying health issues, you are not going to die 99% from this virus, correct?
That's correct, John, and it's good to be with you again.
All right, so that's the point. I mean, they're scaring the living hell out of people, and I see it again as like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax.
That was Republican bomb-throwing Trump sycophant Congressman Doug Collins very much agreeing with Sean Hannity's assessment, but most importantly, Hannity actually calling it a hoax. Now here's Hannity 11 days later saying he was always taking it seriously.
Yeah, and I think what we're
kind of laugh at it, but nothing to laugh at here. By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously, and we've never called the virus a hoax. We call what they're doing, trying to bludgeon the president out. They're politicizing of this virus. Well, predictable, despicable, repulsive, all of the above.
Here are other segments from Fox News, including Janine Pirro saying coronavirus is proof merely of an anti-Trump agenda, Hannity calling the virus a political weapon, the now fired host Trish Regan, we'll get to her later, saying the left is stoking chaos, Laura Ingraham saying the virus is a leftist smear campaign, and on and on and on. Here's lunatic Jesse Waters downplaying it on March 3rd.
You want to know how I really feel about the coronavirus, Juan? If I get it, I'll beat it. I'm not lying. It's called the power of positive thinking, and I think America needs to wake up to that. I'm not afraid of the coronavirus, and no one else should be that afraid either.
And then here's the same Jesse Waters, not even a month later on April 1st, pretending he was always taking it seriously, but there were some Democrats who weren't taking it seriously.
Cuomo was saying, go eat out in New York City. De Blasio had all the schools open. Nancy Pelosi said, bring your friends to Chinatown and go to the bars. Joe Biden said the travel ban was racist. Every column in the New York Times, the Washington Post downplayed this thing. And actually, Morning Joe had the audacity the other day to say that everybody saw this coming in January. Do you know how many segments Morning Joe did on the virus in January? 1. They booked a guy who said, don't worry about this virus, worry about the flu. Finally, everyone's on board. Young people, old people, left, right. We're all in this together now, and we need to stay together until we beat.
So now Jesse Waters saying he was one of the few people taking it seriously all along. They are now gaslighting. We could do examples of this all day long, and they're simply taking the lead from Trump. This is what you have to really understand about this entire sort of echo chamber. For weeks, Trump downplayed the virus, and so did Fox News. So did Rush Limbaugh. So did everybody. Now Trump is pretending he never downplayed it, pretending he always took it seriously, pretending he always knew it was going to be a pandemic. I think he said last week he knew it was a pandemic before it was even being said publicly. And so now Fox News is doing the exact same thing. They're very predictable caricatures, in a sense, truly sad state of affairs in the country. But all of this is completely predictable. When it comes down to knowledge and facts and thinking, this was exactly what we would have assumed that they were going to do. And of course, the real concern, the serious issue at the tail end of this, whenever we get to it, is that they may get away with it. They have a confident, dishonest ignorance is the kind of best way I can summarize it. They are dishonest. They are ignorant to the facts, but they do so confidently on their airwaves. And unfortunately, unless we have a long memory, they may not suffer because of it. And so my greatest fear is, of course, that the death toll will be so much higher than it needed to be because of the terrible response from the president and the terrible responses that we saw from the right-wing media that basically just play to Trump's base. That's concern number one, the death toll. Once it's all said and done, and it's time to decide, are we re-electing Trump or are we voting him out? I worry that that confident, irresponsible, ignorant dishonesty will lead to too many people saying, would have been worse without Trump, let's vote to re-elect him. And that is genuinely an increasing fear that I have because of the degree to which that cultish following of Trump is convinced that he's been doing the right thing all along. We'll keep following it and trying to make the case that that is not the situation. So yesterday, there were some really interesting moments during Donald Trump's coronavirus press briefing. One of them was when, within minutes, Donald Trump went from saying, I'm withholding money from the WHO, to denying that he ever said that. We already looked at that. I mostly have not been playing clips from these press briefings each day, because if I did, the entire show would be clips from the press briefings, which have essentially replaced Donald Trump's political rallies in the era of coronavirus as a way for him to get out his propaganda. And he probably, to some degree, kind of like gets off from doing these press briefings, would be my guess. But yesterday, there were a couple of things that I really want to highlight because they go beyond the coronavirus story alone, and they bleed over into some other important issues, one being the November of 2020 election and how to do it safely, and the idea of voting by mail. Now, Nancy Pelosi has already said we should vote by mail in 2020. I played that clip for you last week. Coronavirus makes it dangerous for people to mass gather at polling places, although we are expecting a decline starting very soon that will go through July, August. We're not exactly sure until when. In November, we will likely be in the second wave of coronavirus cases. But Donald Trump has been very critical of voting by mail. Why? Well, we know why. He admitted it, because it would help Democrats win. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here is Trump himself saying that exact thing just last week.
I will tell you this. If you look at before and after, the things they had in there were crazy. They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again. They had things in there about, election days and what you do and all sorts of clawbacks. And they had things that were just totally crazy and had nothing to do with workers that lost their jobs.
All right. So we know Trump knows voting by mail would be bad for Republicans. It would be bad for him. So yesterday during the coronavirus press briefing, he again went on about how vote by mail is bad, vote by mail is corrupt, vote by mail is fraudulent. But a reporter accurately pointed out that, and this was being carried live on Fox News and on other networks, mind you, a reporter points out, wait a second, Mr. President, you voted by mail in Florida just a few days ago. If it's so bad and corrupt, why is it that you're doing it? And Trump says the quiet part out loud, admitting, well, it's okay for me to do it. It's just not okay for other people to do it. Take a look at this video.
So you were highly critical of mail-in voting, mail-in ballots for voting.
I think mail-in voting is
but
horrible.
you voted by
It's
mail
corrupt.
in Florida's election last month, didn't you?
Sure, I could vote by mail for that.
How do you reconcile
Because I'm
that?
allowed to. Well, that's called out of state. You know why I voted? Because I happen to be in the White House and I won't be able to go to Florida and vote.
Difference
But let me just
between
say,
mailing within
well, there's a
state or
big
mailing
difference
outside the
between
state.
somebody that's out of state and does a ballot and everything sealed, certified, and everything else. You see what you have to do with the certifications. And you get thousands and thousands of people sitting in somebody's living room signing ballots.
Mail-in voting is horrible and corrupt, but I'm allowed to do it. Trump clearly imploding here and tries to wildly suggest, well, you know, I'm doing it from out of state and all of these other people are talking about doing it in state. All else being equal, though, isn't it safer to do in-state vote by mail because the ballots have to travel a smaller distance, a shorter distance? Doesn't that, I mean, it's like it's not really a big difference, but it seems that if anything, vote by mail within the state is less risky than what Donald Trump is doing. It's absolutely and completely incoherent. And I'm actually surprised Fox News didn't cut away from this altogether. Mail-in ballots are good and convenient for Trump, but they're bad for everybody else. Now, if we had a reasonable president, if we had a real president at all, I think maybe is more accurate, the president would realize we have a pandemic and a top priority is we need a safe option for voting. It should be transparent. Vote by mail is not corrupt. Let's start now, or really weeks ago, setting up vote by mail in every state for everybody for November. But Donald Trump has already admitted vote by mail would be bad for him. It would be bad for Republicans. And he's right about that. Why? Democrats are more likely to believe the science on coronavirus. Republicans are more likely to believe Donald Trump's propaganda. Democrats are more likely to heed warnings about social distancing. So if November comes around and we're in wave 2 of the virus and things are dicey, there is no doubt that Democrats are more likely to stay home than Republicans. If everyone has a safe, convenient, secure way to vote from home, Trump realizes accurately it's not good for him. That's why we have what we have today, which is Trump calling vote by mail dangerous and corrupt. But of course, he's doing it. And the only way in which voting by mail is dangerous is that it makes it more likely Trump is removed in the fall, which we desperately need. And Trump is increasingly desperate to prevent. Very, very difficult stuff that we are dealing with. And these are some of the side stories, which aren't even really side stories that really deserve a lot of attention. We'll have more on this and today's other stories on the David Pakman Show Instagram page at David Pakman Show. Do me a favor while you're there, follow me on Instagram at david.pakman. You may not have heard, I am now the poster boy for a hair product. You'll know what I mean if you check out my Instagram at david.pakman. Quick break, back after this.